Right now, Australia is in a seller's market, and this means that owners have the upper hand. Because of this, it's quite common for buyers to offer unconditional contracts. In today's video, we uncover the 7 massive risks associated with buying with an unconditional contract. So keep watching. And if you like our content, it'd mean the world if you could hit that subscribe button. 1. Searches. If you're looking to make an unconditional offer, the first thing you want to do is complete searches on the property through your conveyancer or solicitor. Are searches necessary? Well, to make an unconditional offer on a property, searches aren't legally required. It's because you can choose to take on this risk if you wish. I'd say this is something you should never do, because we're talking about a purchase which will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whatever you do, don't take on the risk in not doing the searches. What's your solicitor looking for in these searches? Solicitors are able to do searches for things such as flooding, town planning, land tax, and building approval, just to name a few. Your conveyancer or solicitor will give you a list of all the searches they're able to do, and what they're essentially looking to do is find anything that will cost you money both now or in the future. Let me give you an example. A customer of ours recently made an offer on a property. After her solicitor had completed all their searches, they found that the carport wasn't council approved. It essentially meant that any time the council could request this to be removed. Finding this out allowed our customer to renegotiate the property price to allow for the cost to get the council approval, and is a great example in why these searches are so important. At what stage should you complete these searches when buying a house? When you're making an unconditional offer, it's best to complete these searches before making the offer. How much do these searches cost? The total ranges from $150 to $1,500, as it really depends on the searches you complete. 2. Building and pest. Okay, so the next thing you'll want to do is look to complete your building and pest inspection. Now, a lot of people will use a real estate agent's report if one's available, but I'd recommend completely against this. Remember, they represent the seller. The last thing they'll want to do is get a building and pest inspector who's very detail orientated. If you're looking to buy a house unconditionally, personally, I would arrange my own inspection every time without exception, as the cost of getting this wrong is simply not worth it. How much does a building and pest inspection report cost? Typically, it ranges from $500 to $700. What's involved with the building and pest inspection? An inspection includes a review of the property's structural integrity, moisture, and pest activity, such as termites. When arranging the inspection, it's most important that you're there at the same time the inspector is. Once the inspection is complete, it'll allow you time to walk through the report with the inspector. When showing you the problems, ask the inspector whether these are major issues, what would happen if you wouldn't fix it, and the approximate cost in doing so. Is it worth getting a building and pest inspection? Yes, 100%. Think of it like an insurance cost. For the $500 that it's going to cost to get one done, it's really a safeguard to help you from losing thousands of dollars. And remember, always do one on your own. Never rely on an agent if one's available. 3. Valuation. The bank no longer offers what's called an auction-ready pre-approval. These were the pre-approvals which were unconditional. They weren't subject to mortgage insurance, approval, valuation, or even the bank's reassessment. You could make unconditional offers on properties knowing 100% that finance wasn't going to be an issue. These are no longer offered by the banks, and it was mainly due to the explosion of auctions across the country and the costs associated in offering these. So now the best the banks can offer is what's called a fully assessed pre-approval. And these are becoming more and more rare as the banks seek to reduce their costs. More often than not, you'll receive what's called an automated pre-approval. These are nothing more than a bank system essentially saying that you have credit worthiness.
Computer says yes.
And that you're pre-approved. But they're nothing to be relied upon. And in short, they're not worth the paper they're written on. Back to the valuations, and when you buy unconditionally, even if you have a fully assessed pre-approval, the bank will still have a condition saying that they want a satisfactory bank valuation. While you might not see any major issues with the property, if the bank's valuer thinks otherwise, it could be the difference between getting approved and declined. 4. Mortgage insurance. Okay, let's say you've got a fully assessed pre-approval. Excellent. But if you have less than a 20% deposit or need mortgage insurance, what you may not realize is that most banks won't pass your pre-approval application onto their mortgage insurer. And they're the gatekeeper. and ultimately decide if your application will be approved in the end. Because whilst the bank might like your application, if the mortgage insurance doesn't, then the bank has no choice but to decline your application. As without the mortgage insurance, they're unable to help, and the only other option is to come up with a significantly larger deposit to avoid. 5. The cost of unconditional offers. As you can see, an unconditional offer doesn't help you in the slightest. By making an unconditional offer, you'll want to have completed all the necessary searches and inspections at a very minimum. And this will set you back between $1,000 and $3,000. So even before, if you know your offer is accepted, you're in the red. And this is where the sunk cost is realized. It means you're less likely to walk away, even if by doing so means it's at your detriment. It's because people are twice as motivated to avoid loss than they are to receive a gain. With $3,000 already spent, most will go as hard as they can to get their money's worth. And this is the secret to auctions and unconditional contracts. In no way is it created to help you, the buyer. They're designed to create every advantage possible for the seller and ultimately helping get a record price. 6. Commonly asked questions. What is an unconditional contract to sell? This is an offer where a buyer waives their rights. This essentially means they buy the property no matter what, and the offer isn't subject to things like finance, building and pest, or any other conditions. What happens when the contract goes unconditional? Essentially, this means that both parties are locked into the agreement, no matter what. If either party wants to leave the agreement, then legal consequences can be enforced based on the contract terms. For property, this means either penalty interest or damages being charged for the person who's in default. Can I get my deposit back if I change my mind once I'm unconditional? The short answer is no, you can't. Once you're unconditional, you're locked in. And if you pull out of the contract, the owner can and will press charges for breaking the agreement. What is the cooling off and finance period? In Queensland, contracts typically have both the cooling off and finance period. The period allows buyers 5 business days to terminate the contract, and if by doing so, would receive a 0.25% penalty charge for termination. And this is for the cooling off clause. With the finance clause, it means that buyers are able to terminate the contract within the agreed timeframe and exit without a penalty. For example, if you have 14 days finance and your bank doesn't approve your application, then so long as you notify the seller within the 14-day period, you can exit the contract without a penalty. It's common for these periods to be extended if your bank or lender doesn't have the approval for your home loan in time. Can I get out of a contract I just signed? It depends on the contract you've signed. If you've signed subject to a cooling off period, then yes, you'll be able to do so. You'll be able to exit the contract so long as you're still within the cooling off period. But as mentioned previously, you might be charged a fee for doing so. On the other hand, if you've signed a contract which is unconditional and which you've waived your cooling off period, then you might be locked into the contract and unable to exit. It's always recommended that you seek legal advice before signing any contract so you know 100% what you're doing before you commit. What's the difference between a conveyancer and solicitor? A conveyancer is a property specialist and able to help you with the title transfer. They typically deal with helping people to complete searches and settlement on properties. Think of them as a specialist, but they're not a fully qualified legal practitioner. On the other hand, a solicitor is. This means you're able to get much more insights on property law, taxation, and other legal matters. For the vast majority of people, a conveyancer would be more than sufficient to assist. A solicitor would only be recommended if you're looking to purchase in the name of a trust or company, or if you have non-standard purchase agreements with many moving parts. And there you have it. Here at Hunter Galloway, we get home loans approved. So if you live in Australia and looking for a mortgage broker, we can help. Visit us online at huntergalloway.com.au or call us on 1300 088 065. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.